one-way plane tickets to Puerto Rico.
One-way
and then we
ticket.
transferred to these little rinky-dink 2-passenger plane that took us to this little island called Culebra.
Mm-hmm.
And then I proceeded to have a nervous breakdown on this island.
Fail for you.
Oh my God. For some reason, Hunter S. Thompson and the Rum Diaries come to mind. Just being in a...
Cool. I haven't read that, but I know of it.
So you're... Oh my God. So you
Yeah.
left New York. You're on some crazy isolated island.
Almost on this little
And you're freaking out.
island in the Caribbean. Yeah, I felt disappointed. I felt like a failure.
Mm-hmm.
You know, this felt like the biggest failure.
Had poetry creep back into your life yet? Where were you with regard to your muse, your creativity?
I think I'm writing like blogs now. I'm like blogging.
You're sharing your experience through blog.
I'm writing. Yeah, I had a blog about branding that became more and more about inner transformation and spirituality.
Mm-hmm.
So, and then I was compiling some of these blog posts into like little ebooks. So I was kind of like making these little ebooks that were like a collection of my blog posts.
Nice.
Yeah. So I was still writing, but it was more, it was not nonfiction, musings.
Okay.
So I'm blogging now.
Nice.
Yeah. And yeah, I'm just like, I'm on this island and I feel like a complete failure. It's like, I keep trying to move to New York and I keep getting thwarted.
You didn't understand how the universe was conspiring to help you.
Yeah,
it was not clear.
I started to disbelieve that was happening.
Yeah.
I was like, no, the universe is not conspiring. Like,
They do not want me to be in New York.
right. But it was really funny. Like, I had nothing else. This is a little island. There's nothing to do here. So I would just sit at the beach every day and just watch the tide come in and out and just
You're meditating.
be in contemplation.
Yeah.
And it ended up being like a prolonged state of meditation.
Yeah.
And my friend who I was with, Jake, he told me to instead of being like afraid of the uncertainty of the moment, to really lean into it and to really like not shy away from the uncertainty, but to really lean into it and to find a way to trust the uncertainty of that moment.
Mm-hmm.
So I would just sit on the beach and just try to lean into the uncertainty and find a way to trust it. And the ocean tide is coming in and out. And I just hear my ego going crazy. Like, oh, how am I going to get a job? How am I going to get to New York City? Blah, blah, blah. But the longer I sat with that in that state of meditation, the more I realized that like, oh, this is just chatter of my ego. This isn't just because I think something doesn't make it true.
Mm-hmm.
And I kind of started to realize that like, oh, the ego is not me. And the longer I sat there in silence, in stillness, I started to really hear the voice of my intuition and like, oh, maybe this is all happening for a reason.
The beach was your Bodhi tree.
Yeah. It's like, maybe this is happening for a reason. Maybe this is a necessary stepping stone to get me where I'm going.
Yeah.
And I started to really think about, so we have these voices inside of our heads. There's
Right.
the ego and then there's our intuition. And they're kind of always speaking to us. And it's up to us which one we listen to. And then I was like, oh man, that'd be a great book idea. And I immediately had this idea for a book and it was called Shit Your Ego Says.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, wow, this is a good idea. And I'd wanted to write books before, but this was the first one where it seemed very clear that this was a book that I was going to write and that I was going to publish.
Yeah.
And then I realized, all of this is happening for a reason, because that is a book that I ended up writing and publishing. And it required all this happening and it required me being homeless on this island to reach that point of surrender where that book idea came through. And then that really changed things because that really launched my career as an author.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
The question that came up for me is, and when I sit in contemplation, when I meditate, there's definitely thoughts that come. I never thought about dividing them into inspiration and then ego. Mm-hmm. And then, so the natural thought for me, the question for me is like, how do you sort Which one is inspiration and which one is ego?
Yeah. Well, the ego tends to, it's mental. It is strictly, it's a mental construct. It's a mental abstraction. It's just thoughts. And there tend to be, the ego wants to protect you. So the ego is kind of looking for threats, and it's on the defensive. And so much of our society is caught up in this mental activity and everything. Like even when you look at the economy, everything is built on mental abstractions. Like most of the economy, it's based on, dividends and, the stock market. And then there's all these layers of it that are just layers and upon layers of mental abstractions that are disconnected from anything real.
Yeah.
So the whole world is like this ego mental abstraction. And intuition for me, it can be a thought, but I think it's more of a feeling. It's more of a sensation that you feel, and kind of, it's a knowing. So it's more of an inner knowing than it is like mental chatter.
Yeah.
So that's what I would say. I was like, the ego is mental chatter, and the intuition is an inner knowing. So just tuning into the body is how you can connect with the intuition.
Yeah.